Hello there. Welcome to my website. Glad you're spending a little time looking over my new column. I look back over the fun of being in politics or the not so much fun today on both the national and state level. And I hope you read over the column. It was a lot of fun when I was in public life. And sometimes you might think that's frivolous, that you don't get into politics to have fun, but you got to enjoy what you're doing. I had the great honor of being a state senator from up in the northeastern part of the state, little town called Faraday, Louisiana was my home, where I moved after I got out of Tulane Law School, started a law practice, got interested in public life. Through a kind of an odd series of events, became good friends with Governor John McKeithen, who was the governor at the time. And I'll tell you just very briefly the story because it got me into the whole flow and what I wrote about this week. John McKeithen was a two-term governor of Louisiana, the first two-term governor. They passed a constitutional amendment allowing him to run for a second term. And towards the end of his second term, it was approaching the 1968 presidential election. And there were rumors that Hubert Humphrey was going to get the nomination, and he needed a Southerner to balance off the ticket and was seriously considering John McKeithen. Well, by luck of the draw, my wife, who'd gone to the Art Institute up in Chicago, wanted to go visit a roommate. So we took my little 4-year-old daughter, my oldest daughter, Campbell, got in the car and drove, 4-month-old daughter, 4-month-old, let me make that very clear, headed to Chicago by car. When I got up there, I was a little bored as my wife enjoyed talking with her roommate. And I read in the paper that the Democratic Convention was taking place in Chicago. I had not followed the news, did not know that. So I said, well, look, just to get out of the house, I'll go down to the Democratic Convention. Well, I got down there and I knew there were some rumors of McKeithen running that had been in the local papers. Came across a friend of mine who was on the staff of Congressman Hale Boggs, who then was the majority leader at the time. And so we had dinner and he kind of filled me in on all the controversy. Now, remember, this is at the end of the Vietnam War. I've written a lot about Vietnam as to the fact that I enlisted when I didn't have to, and very proud of my military service, although I've got second thoughts as the years go on about Vietnam itself. So there are lots of protests in the streets in Chicago. The park right across along Lake Michigan, right from the Sheraton Hotel, which was the foundation hotel for the convention, covered with rioters, people galore. I was having dinner with my friend on Congressman Boggs' staff at the Blackstone Hotel right next to the Sheraton. The dining room of the Blackstone was down the stairs. We'd ordered fillets or just sitting there enjoying our meal. All of a sudden, I looked up and I saw this white smoke that was crawling along the ground, came down the stairs. And from my military experience, I knew right away it was tear gas. Well, they just put the fillet down there. And I took the fillet and popped it over my nose so I wouldn't breathe in or smell the tear gas, and ran out of the hotel lobby, lost my friend in the shuffle, and wandered into the Sheraton Hotel. All the riots were taking place all over the park. Police in riot gear were everywhere. So I said, well, I want to watch this. And I got on hit the Sheraton elevator button to go up to the top floor where they had a viewing area where you could see what was going on down the park. Well, I hit the elevator door and the door opened. There was John McKeithen and Senator Russell Long. I certainly recognize McKeithen as the governor, and Senator Long was one of the most powerful U.S. senators in the country. So I got on the elevator and I said, Governor, I'm Jim Brown from Faraday, Louisiana. Well, Jim, what are you doing up here? And just quick as a wink, I said, Governor, I came up here to support you for vice president. Well, he thought that was the funniest thing. He laughed about it. And he remembered that. And I was up there in that regard. He didn't get the vice presidential nomination, came home in a huff from the convention, pretty upset about it. But every time I would see him in a crowd, he said, oh, I know Jim Brown. He's the only person from Louisiana that came to support me for vice president up in Chicago back during the convention. And we hit it off, and I invited him up to speak to my local civic club, which he did, had a reception beforehand, had an interest in politics. I think I sent out about 1,000 invitations to my reception. It said, please come join Mr. and Mrs. Jim Brown to meet my good friend, Governor McKeithen. I felt like, well, look, if I was the only one that supported him in Chicago and came up there, I could consider him a good friend. So I don't know what he thought about it. So McKeithen came to the reception. People were very impressed in all my local area. And then when the legislature came around, he urged me to run for the legislature, for the state Senate, called me and asked me to do that. And I did. I was successful. And Governor McKeithen became a good friend over all those years. Tell you one little story about him as we're talking about this. And I'm making the point that it seemed like more interesting and fun in politics back then. And maybe just because I'm one of the old codgers that aren't in the current flow, but nobody seems very happy here now. On one instance, I was out running for state senator. Caldwell Parish was one of the parishes where I was running. And I went over on a Friday night to the Caldwell High School football game so I could shake hands with everyone who was coming in the gate, saying, hey, I want to be your next senator. Hand them a card. And John McKeithen was from Caldwell Parish, from Columbia. He'd come home for the weekend from the state capitol in Baton Rouge because his daughter was a cheerleader. So he came home to watch her cheer, and he walked in the gate, and he said, hey, Jim, how's the campaign going? We chatted for a bit, and it started to mist and rain a little bit. He stood there with me as all these people came in. So, oh, hi, Governor, hi, Governor. And he'd say, I want to introduce you to Jim Brown. He's going to be our next state senator up there. And he stayed there with me for about 30 or 40 minutes, I guess. And it was raining, and he was wet. He did have a big cowboy hat on, but he was wet. And I've always have been so grateful for that because Caldwell Parish overwhelmingly supported me, and I won the office of state senator. So I share that with you. It was good times. It was fun. I got a lot done in my district. I often opposed or worked hard to fight off opposition from legislators in New Orleans or Shreveport or other parts of the state. But at the end of the day, we'd all get together. We'd go out to dinner. Maybe we'd barbecue. We'd stay in one of the local motels. My wife would come down, and we would spend there getting to know each other, getting to know the kids. And now, look, if you're in the opposite party, if you're a Democrat and there's a Republican friend, well, that's the enemy. That's not a friend. That's the enemy. It's a whole different world on the national level as well as the state level. So I share those stories with you because I enjoyed my public life. Being the state senator was probably one of the most enjoyable things I ever did. I think I got a lot done for my district. I think I made a contribution, but I had fun. I had fun. And we don't see that in politics today. So glad you're looking at my website. Look over some of the fun things I have up, and I'll see you again here next week. Take care.